Sorry, 911 was that? It's your emergency.
The mystery begins with a worried phone call.
What's your name?
When it first started, just a typical missing person, but as it grew, it became a big thing for our community.
Where's that from?
The call comes from the family of 24-year-old Tamika Houston.
We were notified by her family that she had been missing.
This is Spartanburg 6-5. I'll be in right with that call.
Police hope a visit to Tamika's residence will yield some clues.
We send an officer out to the house to check around, to see if anything's out of the ordinary, see if there's newspapers piled up at the door, mail in the mailbox.
Tamika's car is gone. Maybe she just took off on her own.
It didn't appear that there was any crime there. The house was secured.
Detectives Steve Lamb and Jay Stedman are assigned to the case. And they've been around long enough to know that people often disappear on purpose.
If you're an adult, you have the right to go missing and not to have anyone know where you're at.
But something about this case has them worried.
Her parents had not heard from her. Her aunt in Miami, Florida had not heard from her. And that was unusual, out of character for her.
Detectives try to pick up Houston's trail electronically.
Unless you're completely off the grid, it's pretty difficult to hide in the United States. We tried to track anything that we could find out about Tamika, everything from her cell phone to her financial records.
Her phone records show that she stopped making calls the week before. The money trail is also cold.
She had not had any financial transactions since she had been reported missing.
Maybe the young woman had an accident.
Contact in hospitals, emergency rooms, or anything like that, that turned up negative.
It was kind of frustrating because we were trying to look for that needle in a haystack, trying to find something that may be relevant to our case.
How you doing, man? I'm Officer Mike, Spartanburg City Police Department.
Investigators turn to the missing woman's family and friends.
We just started digging into Tamika, finding out who she was.
She hardly seems the troubled sort.
She loved to sing. She was Christian. She read the Bible quite often.
So she was just an average young lady trying to do the right thing in our community.
Those closest to Tamika agree she's not the type to suddenly disappear.
From the very beginning, they felt like something terrible had happened.
And they all point the finger at Tamika's ex-boyfriend, Fred Allen.
They had strong opinions that he actually had done something to Tamika.
Police run a background check on Allen.
You said 514-73?
And turn up a rocky past.
There was a call where he was arrested for domestic violence.
The victim, none other than Tamika Houston. And curiously, Allen was scheduled to appear in court right around the time Tamika disappeared.
Felt like that was out of the ordinary and just kind of raised some suspicions with him.
Did Allen kill his ex-girlfriend to keep her from testifying against him? Time to find out what Fred Allen knows.
I'm Investigator Stedman. Need to ask you a few questions.
Detectives press Allen about his dispute with Tamika.
Didn't you catch a charge with her, a domestic violence charge?
That's what they say.
But he claims the whole thing was a big misunderstanding.
He maintained that he was still having a relationship with her up until the time that she disappeared.
The more investigators push, the less helpful the suspect becomes.
He basically shut down to police. He didn't want anything else to do with police. He didn't want to talk to us anymore. It's like knowing that someone has done something and you can't prove it, but you just have those gut feelings, those hunches that, yes, this is something that could be related to this.
But with no proof that a crime's even been committed, police are forced to let Alan go.
We didn't have any reason to hold him, any reason to detain him for anything.
Come on, you can go.
Days go by, and still no sign of Tamika Houston. Hope in Spartanburg is starting to fade.
First, it's just a missing person. After a few days, it becomes more serious. And then you start looking at the suspicious details and see if it may be a criminal matter.
Detectives delve into police records for any overlooked clues.
We concentrated our efforts on looking for calls to 911 that were dealing with smells, odors, suspicious activity, or just some really weird calls to 911.
And as they study the previous week's records, they wonder if an anonymous tip could be connected to Houston's disappearance.
A young man called and said that his brother had murdered his girlfriend and dumped her body in one of our local lakes.
The lake is less than a mile from Houston's home. And the call came in right after she went missing. The tipster had been insistent.
The person called back again, very detailed information, not a 5-second call, but several minute call, giving details that we felt like may be linked to the Houston case.
But just when it seems police are closing in, the plot will twist again. Tamika Houston has been missing for more than 2 weeks, and police fear this case could go unsolved. But then a haunting new lead emerges.
We received some 911 calls in reference to someone dumping a body in the lake.
There was a lead that we had to run down.
Spartanburg police pull out all the stops.
Several dive teams went in the lake and actually did grid searches.
They spend hours scanning the murky water.
Are you satisfied we got the pattern search?
Yeah.
Okay, there's nothing. Okay. So
But all their efforts are in vain.
We didn't find anything.
You're searching for things and clues, and you have no idea where to look. So it's kind of frustrating in that sense.
Despair sweeps through Spartanburg as police come to realize Tamika Houston isn't coming home. With the case quickly going cold, investigators launch a last-ditch media campaign.
We started putting out flyers, and it just become a almost daily news information here in our community.
Spartanburg rallies around the cause, and soon the entire town is involved in finding Tamika.
Once we started doing media, it just sort of grew. I come in walking in restaurants and people would be talking about the Houston case. It was something people were interested in and felt part of.
Tips flood into the police department.
We got some calls from people saying they had seen Tamika.
Detectives follow up on every tip, but none leads to the missing woman. And now, weeks into the investigation, detectives are still no closer to finding Tamika Houston than when she was first reported missing. But just when all hope seems lost, police catch a major break.
I found the car.
It was about 4 or 5 miles from Tamika's house across town, a place that we felt like we had no clue why it was there.
A CSI team searches every square inch of the car.
We look for everything, fingerprints, blood, any type of evidence that may have been left behind either by Tamika or someone else.
In the pocket beside the driver's seat, they find a clue that could change the course of this investigation.
Our investigation team found a set of keys.
The mystery was, what did they go to?
Tamika Houston's case has just taken on new life.
We felt like it was the best lead we had so far, that this would go back to some apartment or some door somewhere, that we would open it up and, you know, the case would be closed.
Investigators try out the locks at Houston's house.
Didn't open any of them.
They were just a set of keys that we couldn't explain what they went to.
Finding the right lock seems like mission impossible, but detectives aren't about to give up the search.
And then we just started bouncing around some locksmiths.
Finally, a stroke of luck.
One of our locksmiths here, who's been here for 30 or 40 years, as soon as we walked in and showed him the set of keys, he recognized a stamp that he had put on the keys to determine that it was something he had made.
Can police finally unlock the mystery of Tamika Houston's disappearance? The Tamika Houston case seems doomed until police find a mysterious set of house keys inside her abandoned car.
We took the keys to a local locksmith, and he recognized one of the keys as a key he had made.
Maybe he can trace it.
He looked back through his records, and he could tell us who he made the key for. And that was Fremont School Apartments.
Investigators hit the ground running.
Once we knew that they were made specifically for an apartment complex, then we were able to go and actually try those keys on those apartment doors.
Detectives meet with the manager and launch a door-to-door search.
We were hoping it was going to open a door to kind of solve the case, locate Tamika alive somewhere, or kind of give us some direction on where to go.
At first, it seems like a wild goose chase.
Don't work on that one either.
As we went through over and over and over and the door didn't open, I mean, we felt like maybe we were at the wrong place.
With just a few doors left in the whole complex, success.
One of the last doors we opened, or tried to open, that actually unlocked that door.
But there lies yet another mystery.
It was a vacant apartment.
Whoever lived here left absolutely nothing behind.
Yes, 2 bedrooms.
Go back to the office.
Yes, sir. We'll be right back.
So who was that person?
Do you have a name of who the last tenant was?
Will it be a familiar name?
The previous resident in that apartment was Chris Hampton.
Whoever Christopher Hampton is, he's a stranger to police, but not for long.
We started interviewing him and asking him how he knew Tamika, when the last time he saw her.
Hampton seems to be a man with nothing to hide.
He volunteered that that they were dating and that she had left to go to Bike Week at Myrtle Beach.
Because she said, I want to go to Bike Week. She said who she was going with? No, she didn't say. She said she was going.
We felt like he wasn't being absolutely honest with us about the details.
Yeah.
But with no body and no evidence of a crime, detectives' hands are tied.
We had nothing to hold him on, so we ended up letting him go.
But they vow to keep this new suspect in their sights.
We wouldn't give up until every stone was uncovered and every door was closed.
6 months later, investigators are still digging for leads when their prime suspect reaches out.
We received a letter that Mr. Hampton had wrote to law enforcement.
Hampton remembers something. Soon after Tamika disappeared, he himself was the victim of a bizarre attack.
And in the letter, he described details about a burglary at his residence, that someone had broke in and vandalized his apartment.
And poured beer on my floor and smeared mayo, ketchup, hot sauce, flour, and all kinds of other stuff all over my bedroom floor.
Hampton goes on to offer some proof.
I rented a carpet cleaner from Bilo in Park Hills if you want to go check the date.
It's a bizarre revelation.
To law enforcement, that was just a red flag. Why would he be writing, telling us this information? He was kind of giving us hints about a crime scene in his apartment.
Police suspect that Hampton's letter is the sign of a guilty conscience. And they hope it can finally help them solve this case.
We had enough for a warrant, went ahead and executed a search warrant that day.
Detectives head back to Hampton's old apartment. And when they take a closer look at the carpet,
What about that stain on the carpet?
they can see someone's gone to a lot of trouble to clean it.
You can see that there was some stained areas like Clorox or some bleach had been poured on the carpet.
Pulling up the rug, they find a horrifying clue.
There was a large reddish-brown stain under the carpet in the bedroom. It stained through the carpet, through the padding, and to the floor.
This isn't hot sauce or ketchup. It looks like blood.
Large stain in the bedroom on the floor. Smaller stain in the closet. So we felt like if this was our crime scene and this was where it happened, that he had moved her and placed her in the closet for a time period. I think at that point it turned into a murder investigation for us. We felt like that we were working a homicide case.
Blood samples from Chris Hampton's apartment are sent to the lab for analysis. After so many months of searching, the whole case comes down to this.
The results was it was Tamika's blood.
Investigators are finally closing in on a likely killer. Now, they need to get him to talk or risk everything.
If he didn't tell us where her body was, that we would have a difficult time in court.
Police have found Tamika Houston's blood in Christopher Hampton's apartment. They now believe Hampton killed his girlfriend and hid her body. But where?
At that point, we started orchestrating a plan on exactly how we could bring him into giving us the information, but we knew that he knew the answer.
Detectives bring Hampton back in and come at him hard.
That's it, use nothing.
See this letter right here that you wrote? What this is a crime scene.
We put all our cards on the table. We showed him the pictures we had. We showed him the DNA results.
Their whole case rides on this interrogation.
We knew that if he didn't tell us today, that we may never find her.
At first, Hampton refuses to talk.
But I ain't want to tell him myself, though, you know.
Tell me.
I ain't want to go to jail.
But investigators don't let up. And Hampton starts to crack. Finally, he confesses to murder.
There's some type of argument over money. He turned around as he was ironing his clothes for work. He turned around and struck her in the head with the iron.
Did she move while she was on the ground? Did she make any sounds? You know she's dead.
I was praying to God, tell him to forgive me.
Now it's up to Hampton to do the right thing.
And we said, you ready to go to jail or you ready to go take us where Tamika's at? He said, I'll show you where she's at.
Hampton takes detectives to a wooded lot on the outskirts of Spartanburg.
He wandered around in the woods for a little while, and then he finally pointed at the ground, and he said, this is it. This is where she was.
There, a year after Tamika disappeared, they find her remains. Hampton is sentenced to life in prison, and Spartanburg can breathe a sigh of relief.
It felt really good to finally put all the pieces together and to bring closure to the family.
Anyone involved in law enforcement wants to do the right thing. They're involved in law enforcement to protect the community, to make a better place for our family and our children and our community's family and children. Luckily, this come together for our community as well as for the family.
In western Michigan, about 20 miles north of Grand Rapids, lies the village of Sparta.
Sparta's a small town. A few thousand people in the village. It's got one main street. They decorate it for the holidays. A few business fronts, neighborhoods surrounding it.
If you live in Sparta, chances are everybody's going to know your name and know who you are. It's right in the center of what I would call the apple country in Kent County. It's surrounded by apple orchards, and that's kind of their claim to fame in areas is the apple capital of Kent County.
Most of the orchards are family-owned, passed down from one generation to the next. For the most part, it's a good, wholesome community. But every once in a while, a rotten apple turns up. And in December of 2004, one bad seed would threaten Sparta's whole way of life.
In my experience, this was the biggest case that Sparta Police Department or the community of Sparta has ever experienced.
Sparta Police?
Yes, I think I need to file a missing persons report.
Okay, who's missing?
My wife, Julia Dawson.
Okay. She hasn't called you or anything like that?
No, I tried a cell phone, I can't get through.
23-year-old Julia Dawson took off in her minivan the previous afternoon and hasn't been seen since.
Sparta Police Department was called out to the house around 5 a.m. to take the initial report.
The patrolman asked Dawson about the last time he saw his wife.
Was there a fight of some sort, or is there a reason why she left?
No, she went shopping. Told me she was going to meet up with some friends and go shopping.
He fell asleep and took a nap, and when he fell asleep, Julia was still home. He woke up, Julia was gone.
As the night wore on, he became more and more frantic.
He had tried calling her several times. She never answers the phone. This isn't like her, to do that.
Okay. If you find something out, let us know. And if we find something out, we'll let you know. Okay.
Within hours, police get their first lead.
A Sparta officer saw a van parked at Ballier Park in Sparta. It seemed unusual, so he ran the registration, saw that it came back to the Dawson family. He was familiar with the Dawson family and knew that they lived a short distance from where the van was. In the vehicle, he could see that there was a purse. He could also see there was a gas can, a lighter, and a spotlight in the passenger front seat.
But there aren't any obvious clues about what happened to Julia. Investigators will have to dig deeper.
The Sparta Police Department loaded the van onto a flatbed and taken it to their office for processing.
The people of Sparta cling to the hope that Julia Dawson disappeared on purpose. But what motive could this woman have for abandoning her husband and children? Is this a missing persons case or something more?
It just wasn't adding up for her in this situation to disappear without calling anybody, without leaving messages, no notes, and for her car to be parked so close to the house.
Julia Dawson was born and raised in Grand Rapids, just a short drive from Sparta. Family has always been her priority.
Julia loved her children very much. She spent all of her time with her children. She sacrificed her work and her personal time for her family.
In 2000, Julia was a single mother working at a factory to get by. That's when she met Tim Dawson, a newly divorced father of two.
She met him online on the internet and conversed, and within a couple of weeks, he pretty much convinced her to move out of the house and move in with him.
Tim and Julia soon got married, merged their families, and eventually had a son together. But now, everything they've built is in danger, and if Julia's out there, alive, the clock is ticking. Investigators process the minivan for clues.
We photographed it, we went through the vehicle, and initially as we're going through it, we're looking for fingerprints, we're looking for anything in the vehicle that could give us insight, cell phone, receipts to maybe show where she went, damage to the vehicle, fingerprints.
We didn't find any blood. We didn't find anything that would lead us to believe that there was a fight that happened inside of the van.
There may not be any obvious leads, but the search of the van does tell them something.
Her purse was still in the vehicle. Her cell phone was turned off and in the vehicle. There was nothing missing, no cash, so there was no signs of a robbery. Something wasn't right.
Julia Dawson has disappeared into the Michigan winter. She has no money and no cell phone. Can police find her before it's too late? Sparta, Michigan, police are frantically searching for a missing woman. Julia Dawson went on a shopping trip and never came home. The community is eager to help.
Nolanowski? Yeah.
A lot of people were calling, and they were asking if we were going to do searches and stuff. So, I mean, people were ready to step in.
All right, thanks.
Search parties form in and around Sparta.
All the people in the community gathered together at Balliet Park, where Julia's vehicle was found. They searched the park, up and down roads, apple orchards, fields. They were searching everywhere.
But hours pass with no sign of the missing woman.
We continued with aerial searches by helicopter. I myself was up in a helicopter a number of different times, following a route that would take us from Sparta all the way up to Shelby.
I think we're...
Here's a football field.
Yeah, because
this is the creek.
24 hours after Julia disappeared, it's like the whole population of Sparta is out looking for her. But someone is notably absent.
The only person that wasn't there that we expected was Tim Dawson. He didn't show up for the search for Julia. He wasn't acting as a grieving husband.
Police have to wonder, what does he have to hide? Three days after Julia Dawson disappeared, police pick up their first lead.
We were notified that there was a couple walking on a rural road north of Sparta, and they had found a coat. Inside the coat, there was an ID badge and some gloves.
Sure enough, they belonged to Julia Dawson.
Finding that coat was a step towards pushing our investigation more into a homicide as opposed to a missing person.
Investigators aren't the only ones who fear the worst.
The community was very upset. Julia's family, they're telling us Julia is not missing. This is not Julia. She would not run off. She didn't have a secret life. She wasn't out on some rendezvous. Something happened. Something tragic happened to her.
But whatever it was, police are still in the dark. 3 weeks later, a warm front moves through western Michigan.
Yep, rural patrol's already on scene. SSU's been called out.
The snow begins to melt, and a Sparta resident makes a grisly discovery.
Yep, right in here. Nose in there.
He saw a figure on the side of the road, which he described as a mannequin. As he approached that figure, he got close enough to realize that it was a human body.
Hey, Jimmy. How you guys doing?
What you got?
Body's down there. She's totally unclothed.
All right, you wanna check it out?
Yeah, let's go look at it.
You gotta see if she's got a tattoo on her right ankle.
Yep.
Yep, that's it.
That's the same.
Yep, it's the same one.
The medical examiner confirms it's the body of Julia Dawson.
She was lying naked on the side of a hill. We had a lot of snow at that time, and the snow had just started melting, and her body was exposed when the snow melted. It was clear that her body never moved from the moment it landed on that ground to when we found her. It tells us in this case that Julia was murdered, driven to that location, and her deceased body was dumped there.
And I'll get some guys started on the area canvas. We got a couple houses up this way.
One thing that cold Michigan weather will do is it'll freeze, a human body and preserve a lot of important things. It preserves the bruises that are on the body. It preserves a body in a way that when we get to an autopsy, we can make a lot of determinations that otherwise you couldn't make through decomposition and other things. Julia was struck on the left side of her head just behind her ear, which caused a skull fracture as well. That blow could have rendered her unconscious.
But it didn't kill her. That would come later.
At the autopsy, we were able to notice the strangulation marks around her neck.
Somebody knocked the young mother out, then choked the life out of her. But who?
Gary Canvas, we got some notifications.
Detectives focus in on the victim's husband, Tim Dawson, who'd been conspicuously absent from all the community searches. Dawson says he did go looking for his wife after her disappearance, and he offers up an in-depth description of his activities that night.
About 11:30 at night, he said he got into his vehicle and he drove a specific route looking for Julia. He described the route to us in detail.
Investigators don't waste a second checking out his story, and what they find is a lie.
Just want to touch base with you real quick.
Tim was so detailed as to the route he took. Later, we were able to use cell phones to determine that he wasn't being honest.
Is there any...
Based on his phone records, Dawson was nowhere near the route of his alleged one-man search party.
All right, thanks. Yep, bye.
But what's behind the lie?
Hey, Jim. How you doing?
Detectives bring him in for questioning.
We're done interviewing. We're now going to switch to the interrogation, which is more accusatory. And once we shifted gears to the interrogation and became more accusatory, we're no longer his friend. We're now placing blame.
Police tell Dawson they know he lied about searching for his wife.
It's time to be honest. What have I been honest with you about? We know for a fact that the route and the trip that you told us you took that night, you didn't take.
I've been completely honest with you guys.
Tim, you haven't been honest with me. Lies and deception, I can't explain. And that only equals one thing, Tim. It's murder.
Police in Sparta, Michigan are investigating the murder of 23-year-old wife and mother Julia Dawson. Her body was found on the side of the road, strangled to death. The prime suspect, Julia's own husband, Tim. Detectives have already caught him in a lie, but Dawson denies any involvement in the murder.
Just hear me out, okay? Because this is very important, okay? You need to understand these things, and you really have to listen to what I'm saying, okay?
Detectives try a different tack.
Things that I just mentioned to you.
They suggest that Dawson might get a better deal if he admits to killing Julia in some sort of bizarre accident.
Maybe we aren't investigating murder, and it's only an accident. Perhaps, just a tragic event where there's a lot of panic and bad choices that follow that. And that's where the evidence is leading us, okay? You understand what I'm saying?
But Dawson fails to take the bait.
Okay.
So you guys are saying that you think that I killed her?
He admits nothing.
I don't know what else to tell you. I just told you, if this is the way the questions are going to go, then I want to call my attorney.
Okay.
Detectives have their suspicions, but once Dawson lawyers up, the interrogation is over. And with no physical evidence tying the husband to the crime, police are forced to let him go. Investigators are now more convinced than ever that Tim Dawson strangled his wife, then dumped her body on a lonely stretch of highway. But can they prove it? Detectives try to build their case by interviewing Julia's friends and co-workers.
Information we're looking for in the background to Tim.
Okay.
And
we'll be able to get to it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
And what they discover only adds to their suspicion of her husband.
We had learned Tim was a very controlling individual with her. He separated her from people at work. He separated her from her family. He controlled every part of her life. He called her all the time. Julia never did anything without Tim being aware of it or becoming involved with it. And as we dug deeper into this investigation, we were finding out that Tim Dawson wasn't telling us any of these things.
Seems the marriage was not the picture of happiness Tim Dawson had tried to paint.
All of her co-workers, everything just kept pointing us right back to the house. Julia had discussed leaving Tim. She was making arrangements for leaving Tim. Julia was talking about domestic violence that occurred in her background with Tim.
But it will take more than workplace rumors to put Tim Dawson behind bars. Investigators scour his financial records, and that's when alarm bells start sounding. What they discover is an ill-timed call to the family's life insurance company.
Julia Dawson's husband called a couple days after her disappearance, 20 days before she was found deceased, and the insurance company was told that Julia had died. The only people that knew Julia would have been dead at that point was the person who killed her.
It seems like the grieving husband jumped the gun trying to get his hands on the $100,000 life insurance payout. Could this be the motive behind the murder?
Point to the van.
While investigators continue building their case against Dawson, they attach a GPS unit to his car so they can track his every move.
It's about the third, maybe the fourth spot.
I would pull up the track, follow on the computer screen on a map where he went.
Tim took that night?
At the beginning, Dawson seems to live a mundane life. He goes to work, he visits friends, he returns home. But then, out of the blue, he breaks from his normal routine.
We saw that the vehicles started moving, and we were able to get some intermittent blips showing on a map, showing us that Tim was on the move.
Police can see that Dawson is heading south. He crosses the border to Indiana, then Illinois. Finally, he makes it all the way to Texas. And that's when the surveillance team's worst nightmare comes true. The GPS signal goes dead.
He was heading southwest, and then we did lose signal with a GPS unit.
Dawson is on the run, and by now he could be almost anywhere. Has this small-town father just gotten away with murder? Police in Sparta, Michigan have only one suspect in the murder of Julia Dawson, her husband, Tim. Detectives were keeping a close eye on him, but now he's managed to elude the law, skipping town and driving more than 1,000 miles from home.
Eventually got our last GPS hit somewhere near San Antonio, Texas, and never got another one. We didn't know if that's where he stopped, if he continued on to Mexico. That was our fear.
Detectives launch a manhunt for Tim Dawson, from San Antonio all the way to the border.
Good. Hey, I just want to touch base with you real quick. We
started reaching out to other departments. We were running his license plate and his name and other mechanisms, trying to see if we could get some indication of what he was doing. We started doing search warrants on his credit cards, his bank records, to see where he would be spending money, and none of those were helping us find Tim.
Yep. All right.
Tim Dawson seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. For now, anyway, the would-be killer has managed to outsmart the police.
It was disappointing to know that the only suspect in your murder case is now vanished somewhere, whether in the United States or on his way to Mexico. It was pretty frustrating at the time.
That you can take across near the carousel here.
But detectives don't give up. They continue the manhunt.
There, correct? That is correct.
And their persistence finally pays off when an officer in Texas spots a suspicious vehicle.
They had run a license plate, a Michigan plate, and it came back to Timothy Dawson. They thought it was unusual that there was a Michigan plate on this RV. As they were investigating, they were finding out that he told people that his wife died in Michigan. They started doing some research and discovered that there had been a homicide up here involving Tim Dawson's name attached to it.
Police in Texas tell detectives in Michigan exactly where they can find Tim Dawson.
We were ecstatic. We got on the plane, we flew down to Texas.
There, they stage a surprise arrest.
He didn't seem surprised. He didn't seem shocked. I mean, here we are, 2,000 miles away from him, and we show up out of nowhere. His reaction was just, oh, hey, guys.
Hello, Tim. Hi. I didn't expect to see us, did you?
No, sir.
Finally, Dawson is forced to face the music in court.
We had a good case from the beginning. I knew if we could present the case properly to a jury, we would get the conviction because the evidence all spoke for itself.
And after a 3-week trial, the jury reaches a verdict.
She stopped by.
The jury came back after, I believe, one overnight of deliberation and found Tim Dawson guilty of first-degree murder.
He gets a life sentence.
It was just a sense of relief to the investigators and to myself, knowing that, you know, we finally got justice for Julia and Tim Dawson was going to be spending the rest of his life in prison.
A small-town girl falls for a charming older man.
I was attracted to him, and he was nice.
But on their very first date, things aren't what they seem.
I thought maybe this man isn't as together as I thought he was.
And when she calls a friend,
I thought, dear God, please just let her pick up the phone.
She hears what you never want to hear about your date.
I asked, who were you on a date with? And I recognized the name. And I knew that there was potential for him to be very dangerous.
A date gone bad can be deadly.
Oh my God, I'm gonna die tonight.
Elizabethton, Tennessee, a small town in the shadow of the Appalachian Mountains. Connie Williams, a hometown girl working as a nurse, is known to friends as kind and trusting.
I think Connie tried to see the good in everybody.
A recent divorcee, she pulls up to her date's house for what she hopes will be a new beginning.
I was excited. I hadn't dated in a couple months. A lot of nice guys, but not interested in someone with 4 small children. And they weren't established in life. Just no one that really captured my interest and kept it. It was very hard being alone.
The new man in her life? Ronnie Hairston, someone she's very excited to go out with on a first date.
What I've been thinking all week, there's this established older gentleman, you know, he's said a lot of positive things that could benefit me and my children. I felt lucky that maybe I had found the one.
Connie met Ronnie just 1 week earlier in the very same place when she says she got lost in Ronnie's neighborhood.
I drove by Ronnie's house, so I stopped and asked where the address was that I was looking for. My first impression was, wow, he's an older gentleman. He looks nice. He speaks nice, had a gorgeous smile. And, you know, initially I was attracted to him, and he was nice. He was nice enough to offer me directions.
Connie and Ronnie exchanged numbers and ended up having lunch together. So they had a couple of days of just conversation with one another.
A nurse who takes care of others all day, the single mother relished Ronnie's showering attention.
Ronnie seemed to care about Connie. So it would have been a great day, at least in her mind, that she was going to have an actual first date that would have been meaningful to her.
As Ronnie emerges from his house, only one small detail gives Connie reason for pause.
I thought, why isn't he picking me up for the date and taking me out instead of the other way around? That was my first clue, is to think, well, maybe this man isn't as together as I thought he was.
But Connie sets her reservations aside the minute she sees Ronnie.
Ronnie was a built guy. He was big. He was broad in the shoulders, you know. He just presented himself very nicely.
The night's plan was supposed to be simple.
We were going to drive up to where I live, and I was going to shower and change, and we were going to leave from there and go down to the city.
Connie says Ronnie wants to stop by a liquor store on the way.
My thought there was, okay, we're adults. There's nothing wrong with us having a glass of wine or a drink or something, you know. So I agree.
But when he emerges from the shop, Connie changes her mind.
Both of the drinks that he bought, I wouldn't have drunk, but, you know, my thought on that was, okay, so then I just won't drink. Maybe that's a good thing.
Ronnie begins drinking, and not just drinking, he drinks heavily.
He finished off the bottles within the first 10 minutes of having them.
By the time they reach her home, where Connie will change out of her work clothes, she notices her date can barely walk.
My house is in a small town up at the top of the mountain.
The nearest house is probably, a half a mile of each other.
So I was glad that there weren't people around because they would have said, "What are you doing?" He was at the point where it would have been embarrassing for someone to see me with him.
Connie realizes the situation is getting out of hand, and she does a really good thing.
Hoping to sober up Ronnie and turn her drunken date back into a dream date, Connie starts a pot of strong coffee.
She's seeing almost a complete change in Ronnie from being this charmer, this nice, sweet guy, this teddy bear guy. Now he's turning into the complete opposite.
He was talking about how he noticed that I had certain things in my house and how he could give me big screen TVs in every room and nice furniture. And I remember saying, well, I don't want all those things. I'm happy with the things that I have.
But the Ronnie she thought she knew is changing, and there's no turning back.
His tone of voice changed to very edgy and uncomfortable.
And little does Connie know, this is just the beginning of the date surprises. Connie Williams thought she'd landed a dream date with a charming guy.
He spoke eloquently, spoke like he had an education, so I was impressed with that.
But after a stop at the liquor store, she says, the man who'd seduced her with his smile and kind-hearted words transforms into an obnoxious drunk.
So he was, definitely different from the Ronnie that I had talked to in the past 5 or 6 days.
I think she was a trusting soul and just didn't think that it could be dangerous.
He was talking very loudly, and he told me to take my clothes off, and I said no.
In an instant, a disappointing date turns horrifically violent.
He was screaming and just kind of manhandling me. He was just touching, my breast. I was feeling absolutely terrified. We're talking about 6'4", maybe 250 pounds, very big, very strong, drunk. Felt I was in a position that I had no control over. And he sexually assaulted me on the couch, and I was continuously trying to get him off of me. I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna die tonight.
Ronnie Hairston's attorney denies the sexual assault allegations, but Connie stands by her story.
On the outside, I tried to stay calm after he had raped me.
Though this terrifying ordeal is over for now, Ronnie doesn't want the date to end.
He said he wanted to go to Johnson City and show me to his friends. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Let's go to Johnson City. We'll go to Johnson City and hang out with your friends. On the inside, I was like, oh, hell no. I'm not going anywhere. So I came up with a plan. I put my clothes on.
With Ronnie just outside, Connie quietly calls her friend Kat Grindstaff. And Kat is no ordinary friend. She's a corrections officer at the county jail.
We were pretty close at that time. For a while, we talked almost on a daily basis. Immediately, I knew something was wrong. She's begging me not to hang up the phone. Please don't hang up. Please don't hang up. Keep talking to me. Keep talking to me. So I do.
Suddenly, Ronnie bursts into the room.
He wants to know who she's talking to.
He gets very angry. He hit me again in my arm. He said, are you on the phone with the cops? I said, no, why would I be on the phone with the cops? I said, this is my friend. We're gonna go to her house and party a little bit. Let's just go hang out. So I played it off.
Luckily for Connie, Ronnie buys the whole idea of going to the friend's house and having some fun.
And of course, the whole time I'm saying, you know, what's going on? Who's with you? What's going on?
Kat is stunned by what she hears next.
And I ask who are you on a date with? And she tells me Ronald Hairston. And I recognize the name. I knew Ronnie through the detention system. I knew that there was potential for him to be very dangerous.
Casually, but loud enough for Ronnie to hear, Connie tells Kat they will stop by her house on the way to town. But Connie had something else in a whisper.
She's saying, please don't hang up, please don't hang up.
That's an extremely smart decision because it allows someone else to know where she's at. That's her lifeline.
With one hand on the wheel and the other secretly holding her phone, Connie begins a heart-pounding 12-mile drive down the mountain.
I stayed on the phone with her. All I could hear was he became pretty aggressive.
He's screaming at me. He's throwing his hands up. Very, very angry and aggressive towards me for some reason.
According to Connie, he orders her to turn on the radio, but she makes a painful mistake.
When she refuses, Ronnie punches her in the chest hard.
It hit me so hard it knocked the breath out of me. I was very stunned. I was like, oh my God, did he just hit me? Okay, this is turning even more bad. He hits me, he punches me in my arm a couple times. He reached over and grabbed my breast in a way like as if to try to rip it off of me.
I didn't have any idea what was going on. I just knew that my friend was needing help, and I'm scared, very concerned for her.
At that time, Ronnie sits back in the passenger seat and closes his eyes.
With Ronnie apparently passed out and her cell phone stashed at her side, Connie risks telling her friend she's okay.
The phone went dead.
She loses her lifeline.
We lost connection. In the rural area that we're in, cell phone service is not the best sometimes.
When I lost reception with Kat, I lost, you know, my safe connection to someone who was aware of what was going on.
That was the one lifeline she had, and now she's alone in this car.
Ronnie punched me again, and I kept thinking, if this guy hits me in the head, I'm gonna wreck. We're gonna die.
What began as a pleasant dinner date has become the stuff of nightmares. Connie Williams says she's trapped in her car with violent ex-con Ronnie Hairston after he allegedly raped her in her own home. But she has a daring plan of escape if she can only reach the home of her friend, corrections officer Kat Grindstaff.
I'm on the phone with Kat, and I lost reception with her. So I felt like that safety, that lifeline was gone.
Meanwhile, 15 miles away, Kat grabs her gun. Uncertain about what's headed her way, she may very well need it. Sleeping off the effects of a reported 2 bottles of liquor, Ronnie seems peaceful enough. But when he wakes,
Ronnie punches her in the chest.
And told me to hurry up and get to the house. While driving down a road with this man who's drunk. He's very aggressive, very angry. He's hitting me. He's raped me. I'm not real sure what he's capable of.
When Ronnie closes his eyes again, Connie seizes the chance to redial her friend. But there's no service. Growing desperate, she dials once more. Again, no connection. But on the 3rd try,
Connie.
Her call finally goes through.
I was very relieved that she called back. I was very worried.
There was a slight comfort knowing that there was someone that was aware of the situation. With her background in law enforcement, I was comfortable that she would be the one that would know how to handle the situation.
She just keeps saying, I'll be there in a minute. I'll be there in a minute. So at that point, I don't know what's going on. and I know that whatever's going on wrong is coming to my house.
And fast. As Kat's house appears from the gloom, Ronnie opens his eyes once more.
I pulled up. I seen her standing with her gun.
She seen a lifeline. That's all she wanted to do was get to that lifeline and get away from him. And Ronnie's very furious and just totally out of control and trying to keep her inside the car.
But Connie's not about to give up. Not when she's this close.
I slam on my brakes. I take off my seatbelt, throw open the door, and leap from the moving car.
While the car rolls away, Kat rushes to help her friend get inside the house.
Once my feet hit the ground, I felt like I was free, like I was safe away from him. First thing I did when I got in the house, I grabbed Kat by her shoulders. It wasn't until she said, "It's okay," that I took a breath.
From the safety of Kat's living room, the women hear the squealing of tires.
I just looked out the window and the car wasn't there.
Connie's car peels out and leaves, and this man's in her car.
He was driving at a very high rate of speed, obviously trying to get away because he probably knew that she was calling 911.
As he leaves in her car, I'm thinking, number one, yay, he's gone, and oh no, he stole your car.
While Connie regains her composure, Kat dials 911.
911 dispatcher dispatches one of my deputies who ultimately responds.
We found out that the female subject had ran into a friend's house because the male subject had assaulted her and that he had left in the vehicle at a high rate of speed. And of course, we had a description of the vehicle.
Before Connie can finish giving her statement, the officer receives an urgent call.
I wanted Ronnie caught. I wanted to go home that evening and every day after that and feel safe again, knowing that he's behind bars.
For now, all that will have to wait as the officer responds to another emergency.
In small jurisdictions, like this one, there's rarely enough police officers to go around. And in this case, one officer had to respond to multiple calls dropping.
The policeman promised he would return as soon as he could.
But will it be soon enough?
Not only is Ronnie still on the loose, but he's violent and dangerous. Now that it was quiet, I was able to start processing what had happened, and it was very scary to me.
And at any moment, her date might come back for something more than a goodnight kiss. After a 5-hour date that saw budding romance turn into alleged assault and carjacking, Connie Williams at last reaches the home of friend Kat Grindstaff. But is this ordeal really over? After all, violent ex-con and alleged rapist Ronnie Hairston is still out there.
I think we're all in shock. Connie was concerned that Ronnie would come back.
While they wait for the police to return from another emergency call, Kat prepares for the worst, and Connie begins to unravel.
Connie worries. Where will he turn up again? What will he do to me?
Meanwhile, Kat scolds her friend for being too trusting.
She said, "If you would have just told me his name, I would have told you don't have anything to do with him." And I said, "Well, when have I ever ran a boyfriend through you before? Why would I run one through you now, you know?"
Ronnie's situation was he's been a bad guy for a long time. He's been involved in and out of jail. I would imagine that many women, when they've met Ronnie, have fallen for his lines, his come-ons. He's definitely a con artist in that sense.
Now there's no time for regrets. The pair eye the doors and windows, praying Connie's attacker doesn't come back to finish the job. And then they hear it. Kat warily approaches the door, ready to fire. It's the sheriff's deputy returning from his call.
And I was relieved because now he could finally finish taking my statement and hopefully arresting Ronnie and getting my car.
But the deputy has some surprising news.
The officer had told Kat and I that he had just went to the scene of a car accident a couple miles down the road from where Kat lived.
A sedan had been traveling at a high rate of speed. And crashed.
They told us that the driver was Ronnie Hairston and that it was my car that he had taken.
Ronnie wasn't injured very bad at all, but he was too intoxicated to crawl out that door.
Mr. Hairston was taken to the hospital to check on his injuries and then taken on to jail. Good news is it's over.
Ronnie Hairston is charged with assault, theft, driving under the influence, and driving on a suspended license.
Ronnie was actually on parole at the time that this incident occurred, so he violated his parole because of these charges and because of this incident that night.
I felt like losing my car and it being wrecked was a small price to pay, and knowing that the man that hurt me that night was going to be arrested.
This could have been a lot worse for Connie. He could have killed her.
The assault charges against Ronnie Hairston, which he denies, are later dropped. But 2 years later, a happily remarried Connie is left to wonder, is her diabolical day truly over? Ronnie Hairston has been released on bail, awaiting trial, and he still walks the streets of Elizabethton.